that's why I decided to become a nurse. It felt like God called me to that. It was also because mother and daddy were in the hospital 14 times the last 2 years they lived. I was not a nurse. I was an advocate, but I had no real power. And I knew that families need help and they need somebody with a loving heart um, to care for them. So
Hmm.
that's why. Now, did I ever think that I would do something like starting the first inpatient hospice for people with AIDS? No. And did I think that I'd start my own company to care manage for taking care of seniors and those with developmental delays? No. If God had told me that, I would have said, no way. I just wanted to work 3 days a week or something in the hospital and just be able to use my brain. So
Hmm.
I just kind of, I've always tried to listen to the Lord with my heart.
Share the story about your oncology patients and the AIDS crisis in the 80s and how that was
Yeah,
for you.
I got my degree in 1989, 87, the same year Metta graduated from high school. I graduated from college. And I went to work for a radiation oncologist at Georgia Baptist Medical Center, where Clyde was the CFO. And in 87, we did treat people with AIDS with radiation uh, for Kaposi's sarcoma and lymphoma that they were prone to. And at that time, people would not even physically touch people with AIDS. And they were losing their jobs if anybody knew they had AIDS. And I would go to the waiting room and I would, shake their hand and let's come back to the exam room. And they would say, do you know what I have? And you touched me. And I said, yes, I know you have AIDS and I know how it's transmitted. And yes, I touched you. And their courage, their creativity in the AIDS service organizations that they created, knowing that they were going to be dead before anything could be done with those organizations. At the time in 87, there was an 18-month life expectancy for people with AIDS. And there was one in particular that was gay. He's a gay male, flight attendant, and he was a Christian. And I was beginning to put that together in my mind and in my heart. I knew in my heart God loved gay people, but Christianity really was not open to gay people at that time, like many of the denominations are not now. I'm very proud to have always been an Episcopalian. And I spent 45 minutes one day talking to him about that. And the doctor uh, that I worked with said, so are you doing therapy with these patients now? Because I really was kind of a counselor like to many of our patients. And I said, no, they're doing it with me. And I followed with Danny for 2 years. And when he was back in the hospital dying, um, I went over to see him and he wanted me to read the Bible with him, which I did. And he had a do not resuscitate advance directive. And I went on vacation the next week and he coded and his mother was there and made them resuscitate him. And he was in ICU for 3 days. And my doctor said to me, uh, when I got back, he told me that Danny had died. And he said, I'm glad you weren't here because you knew he did not want to be resuscitated. So they touched my heart greatly, as did my oncology patients.
Hmm. And so you had started, like you said, the first AIDS hospice in Atlanta. What year was that?
1991.
91.
And an infectious disease nurse friend of mine, Kathy Middleton, much, much younger than I was at the time. Uh, she and I came up with the idea in January of 91 that she was an infectious disease nurse. And, she said, wouldn't it be great to create a space like in an old house, like a home-like setting, to care for people with AIDS, because they were staying in the hospital for 3 or 4 months at a time because they required IV therapies. And if they had a partner that was still alive, that that partner was working, and or either their partner was dead. And of course, back then, many of their families had deserted them. So we're like, well, that's a great idea. And Clyde was CFO of Georgia Baptist, and he's like, he knew that that was a very big discharge planning problem. And from initiation of that thought to actually opening our doors was almost 12 months. December the 26th, 1991, we opened the doors of Haven House Hospice. And that seemed like a long time, but to consider, we had to go through neighborhood regulations, and we had to present a paper to the state of Georgia, health department, saying why we needed this alternative setting for people with AIDS, to going before the Atlanta, Georgia, I don't know, they look like God. They're all sitting up there in court, usually me. I guess they were the planning people, or I don't even know which part it was, legislature or something. And then to renovate a 100-year-old house to meet healthcare standards and get your doors open in less than a year, I think is pretty miraculous.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, it was in 2001, I think, when you started Metta Johnson and Associates. Is that right?
That's right. In 95.
So this year is the 20-year anniversary.
It is. It is. In 1995, the protease inhibitors were created, and AIDS became more of a chronic disease. Praise God. So we became Medicare certified and served people with all diagnoses, and opened a home hospice program that became the largest in the city. And Clyde and I sold out principal interest in 99 to someone that it did not work out with. He did not have the heart that we had. So we left in 2001. And what I knew was that families need an advocate. They need somebody that's knowledgeable, that will help them understand their health care, which is very disjointed at this time. And you can't make good aging decisions or decisions if you're disabled without somebody understanding your health care and knowing medications that will give you their opinion. Right now, doctors, you used to be able to say, well, what would you do, doc, if it was your mother? But now they can't really answer that because everything's so litigious. Mm-hmm. So we started Metta Johnson and Associates, and just me, and I worked by myself for 3 or 4 years, building the business, on call 24/7. And it, really took off. And you came on with us 6 years ago, and we have 7 care managers, and it's just been a wonderful gift. I really do think when I started with care management, I was on the cutting edge in Atlanta, as I was with inpatient hospice in 91, and I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've been reflecting on all of this work. How would you describe your legacy?
I hope one of caring and loving. I said to one of my patients, and I do, you know, yesterday when I left him, I said, I love you, because I truly come to love our clients, and 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 a legacy of doing things well. Always in my nursing work, and with the hospice, Clyde and I, we always had the reputation, oh, if they're involved, it's going to be done well and it's going to be done right.